Maybe you've thought to yourself in the past about how the system is rigged, how the rich get richer, how the poor get poorer, how those most represented only gain further representation and the most marginal and isolated, they get left behind. Maybe you've thought to yourself about how those who work the hardest fill the pockets of those who work the least, with our politics, our media, our economy, meaning that ever fewer people have ever more power. Well, despite what people in high places might say to you about Britain being fair and equal and meritocratic and everybody having the same shot at happiness, I'm here to say you are absolutely right. The system is rigged. In fact, it's more rigged than you probably dare to imagine. How else do you explain how George Osborne, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, is now the editor of London's most powerful newspaper, the Evening Standard? Or how Michael Gove and Boris Johnson, former journalists and now politicians, frequently go back into the media? How else do you explain how Sarah Sands, who Osborne replaced the Evening Standard and has now gone to the BBC Today programme, twice backed Boris Johnson for mayor, as well as Zach Goldsmith last year? How else do you explain how Rupert Murdoch's News Corp had 20 meetings with the government in the 18 months between April 2015 and September 2016, 7 of which included Mr Murdoch himself and 18 of which included either the Prime Minister, the Chancellor or the Culture Secretary? How else do we explain how we have a low-tax economy for the rich but a high-tax economy for the poor? Since 2010, we've had corporation tax, capital gains tax and tax for very high incomes all cut, while VAT, the thing you have to pay whether you are unemployed or a multi-millionaire, has gone up. In 2014, 6 of Britain's 10 largest companies did not pay a single penny in corporation tax. How else do we explain these sweetheart deals between some of the most powerful companies in the world and HMRC? Take the one with Vodafone, where Vodafone owed the taxpayer £6 billion, but the government happily said, just pay us a quarter of that, £1.5 billion. Those kind of deals don't happen to ordinary people, they're only granted to the powerful. How else do we explain how in 2015, after it was revealed that David Cameron's father had left assets in a tax haven for him, 21 cabinet ministers were asked by Channel 4 whether they themselves had assets in tax havens. 3 replied no, and 18 refused to disclose any information, presumably because they have something to hide. In the economy, and with tax, just as with the media, the system is rigged. How else do you explain how David Cameron, the former Prime Minister, could more or less trace his family back to the Battle of Agincourt and was a relative of a former king, William IV? George Osborne, his Chancellor, is the heir apparent to one of the most powerful and oldest baronetcies in Northern Ireland. How else do you explain how 50% of David Cameron's cabinet went to 2 universities, Oxford and Cambridge, and how even with his successor, Theresa May, somebody widely praised as breaking with the politics of Eton patronage, 44% of the cabinet went to those same 2 universities? I'm no critic of world-class scholarship, but don't you dare tell me that there's so little talent in this country, beyond these confined elites, that half of our most senior politicians need only come from such restricted friendship circles. And that's the point. This isn't corruption, it's something far more insidious. It's in precisely these places that we see the nexus of power in Britain truly emerge, between journalists, between finance and bankers, and between politicians. This is not corruption. This is something far more insidious. These are friendships. Even with our ultra-nationalist right-wing insurgents, step forward one Nigel Farage, even they go to some of the most expensive schools in the country. Mr Farage went to Dulwich College. Is it any surprise then that he gets onto BBC Question Time as much as he does? The explanation seems very clear. He comes from exactly the same circles as the rest of them. In our politics, in our economy, in our media, the system is rigged, rigged, rigged. The powerful, those at the top, those who benefit from all of this, will insist on it being otherwise. In fact, often they'll laugh in your face. The answer? Laugh right back in theirs. Because the biggest joke of all is that it's hidden in plain sight.